My wife had a minor car accident. No, not her fault. And the insurance company handed her a courtesy car, a Petrol Vauxhall Corsa. Just before handing it back, I took it down to the petrol station to top up the tank to where it was when she got it. That short drive made me realise how right I was to get an EV. I wake up to a full battery every day I need my car, yet here I was driving several miles to a petrol station just to fill up. So much for that magical 5 minutes. Once I got there, I discovered how effective the canopy was in heavy rain and very cold wind while I stood there for that magical 5 minutes. It's not very effective. But it was the smell that hit me. It absolutely stank of petrol fumes. Maybe as a previous diesel car driver, I got used to this, but after many years of not having to fill my tank, my sense of smell apparently recovered. And yesterday it was brutally assaulted. What that does to my overall health is a very serious scare. And how archaic and a ridiculous waste of time is this drive down to the petrol station? Well, it got me thinking about the oil giants and what they are doing to move on. I'm Dave, and I'm looking into exactly what they're doing. My sense of decency and hope was then brutally assaulted. You've all seen the commercials, the gleaming white wind turbines spinning against a perfect blue sky, the endless fields of solar panels shimmering under the sun, and you've heard their promises with words like sustainable, net zero, and a cleaner future. They're painting this beautiful picture of a transformation where the giants of oil and gas are suddenly leading the charge into a green new world. It's a comforting story. Makes you feel like the problem's being solved, that the very companies that created the crisis we're now in are now the ones that are fixing it. It's a beautiful story, but it's total fantasy. The whole green revolution they're selling you in 30-second adverts is mostly a mirage. Recent analysis found that renewable energy makes up only about 0.13% of the total energy these companies produce. Yeah, that's not a typing error, 0.13%. For every 10,000 barrels of oil they pull from the ground, that's like producing 13 barrels of clean energy. This isn't a transition. This is big oil's green secret, and the numbers don't lie. The strategy even has a name, greenwashing. It's the art of spending millions, even billions, on advertising to create a public image that's way greener than reality. And let's be honest, it's one of the most successful marketing campaigns in history. For decades, these companies have perfected the art of shaping what we think. It's a playbook they've been using for a very, very, very long time. Well, let's rewind. Many of these companies knew perfectly well about the catastrophe and the potential climate change way back in the 1970s and 80s. Their own scientists were sounding the alarm. But instead of acting, they launched brilliant campaigns to create doubt and delay any real action. They funded front groups, lobbied politicians, and worked overtime to confuse the public about the actual science. But their most insidious creation was the idea of a personal carbon footprint. BP, with the help of their ad agency, rolled this out in a massive campaign during 2005. Just like that, the conversation shifted. It wasn't any longer about a handful of powerful corporations driving global emissions, which it actually is. It was about you. Do you recycle? Did you turn the lights off? Did you buy the right car or washing machine? They expertly shifted the weight of the world's climate problem off the corporate balance sheet and onto our shoulders. And we took the blame. Many have asked, well, what difference can I, a single person, do to the global CO2 rise? But they made us all feel guilty driving to work while they were busy planning their next decade of fossil fuel exploration. This isn't just history, it's the setup for the lie we're being sold today. Those green ads are just the latest chapter in a long, elaborate story of perfect deception. But hey, don't take my word for it, let's follow the money, because a company's real priorities aren't in its commercials, they're in its financial reports. I'm going to start with the supposed leader of the pack. This is the company everyone points to as the best case scenario, Total Energies. Recent data shows they have the most installed renewable capacity of any major oil company. And that renewable energy accounts for, well, a whopping 1.59% of their total energy production. Think about that. The very best oil company in the whole world is doing next to nothing. It's so misleading that a French court recently found TotalEnergies guilty of misleading commercial practices for exaggerating its climate commitments. The court ordered them to remove statements about being a major player in the energy transition because their massive investment in new fossil fuel projects tells a completely different story. Then let's look at the other European giants like BP and Shell. Well, for years they've been the poster children for big oil goes green, yet their renewable energy capacity is still tiny, with both accounting for well under 1% of their total energy output. In fact, both BP and Shell have recently walked back their renewable energy commitments, choosing instead to pour money into their oil and gas operations, particularly exploration, because, well, it's more profitable. Their tiny effort has just shrunk significantly. And then you have the American titans, the ExxonMobil and Chevron. While the European rivals were at least putting on a show, the American majors have barely bothered to even pretend. Their investment in actual renewable production, like wind and solar, is practically non-existent. Instead, they talk about carbon capture. Controversial, expensive technology often serves more to justify continued fossil fuel extraction than to actually solve the emissions problem. Besides, it doesn't work yet. They spout biofuels or green petrols and make special fuels for F1, but they turn out to be anything but green, actually producing more CO2 worldwide than the mainstream fossil fuels. ExxonMobil, which once mocked its rivals for spending on clean energy, is now funneling billions into low-emission opportunities. But look closely and you'll see it's mostly for things like the carbon capture and the green biodiesels, not the wind and solar farms we see in their ads. So what does this tiny percentage actually look like? Well, if you imagine their entire business is a football field, how much of that field is dedicated to renewables? Well, it's not the halfway line, no, nowhere near. It's not the penalty area. It's not even the area of the goal that's covered by the net. It is, in fact, about the exact size of the white dot that is the penalty spot. What's worse, analyses show that about half of the industry's renewable capacity comes from simply buying up smaller existing green energy companies, not building anything new. They're not adding to the world's clean energy supply, they're just changing the name of who owns it. When you confront the industry with these numbers, they have a canned response. They'll talk about, energy security and how the world still needs oil and gas. They'll say the transition has to be slow and that they're investing in transitional fuels like natural gas and LNG. And to be fair, the world's energy system is complicated. We can't just turn off the fossil fuel taps overnight, as we found out with Ukraine. But these arguments aren't made in good faith. They are well-honed delay tactics. Real energy security doesn't come from doubling down on a finite resource that's causing a global crisis and climate change. It comes from diversifying into cheaper, more stable and domestically produced renewable energy. And the numbers back this up. In 2025, global investment, other than the oil companies, in clean energy is set to hit $2.2 trillion, actually double the amount flowing into oil, gas and coal. They've had their day. And that argument that they're just meeting demand, well, it's a masterclass in misdirection. These companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars lobbying governments to lock in fossil fuel dependency for decades, fighting against policies that would reduce that demand. Interesting figure, there were more oil giant lobbyists at the last climate change conference to ensure nothing changed than all the rest combined. They aren't passive players in the market, they're actively shaping it for their own benefit. Their claim of a slow transition falls apart when you see that their spending on new fossil fuel exploration continues to dwarf their entire green budget. They aren't managing a transition, they're managing a PR campaign. So why does all this matter? Who cares if their green promises are a fantasy? Well, we should all care, because this deception stalls real climate action. It creates a false sense of security, making people and politicians think the problem is being handled by the very companies that are most responsible. It gives them a green halo to expand their fossil fuel operations, locking in decades of future emissions and pollution. But fortunately, while they're busy talking, the rest of the world is moving on. According to the International Energy Agency, renewables are set to overtake coal as the biggest source of global electricity generation in 2025. Coal's finished. The global energy transition is happening, but it's happening in spite of big oil, not because of it. This lie also deceives good people. It tricks consumers trying to make responsible choices. It fools investors who are told their money is funding a cleaner future. It lures talented young engineers who want to build a better world, only to have them work on projects that are a tiny token fraction of the company's real business. And finally, it gives these companies what they call a social license to operate. By spending just a little on green projects, a lot on green advertising, they deflect public anger, dodge stricter regulations, and protect their massive profits. They are buying our complacency, and the cost is the future of our planet. So it all comes back to that tiny number, that fraction of a percentage. It's a number that cuts through the noise, the soothing voices, and the very pretty but powerful commercials. It's the secret they don't want you to know. The green transition advertised by big oil is, for now, a carefully crafted illusion, a story they tell us so they can keep doing what they've always done. But now you know the secret. You have the numbers, and the most powerful tool against a big lie is a, simple, verifiable truth. Don't let them write their own story. If you found this information useful, share this video. Send it to your friends, your family, anyone who deserves to know the real story behind the adverts. Be critical. Ask those hard questions. If you want more deep dives or cut through the corporate spin, make sure you subscribe. The more of us who see the truth, the harder it's going to be for them to hide it. I'm Dave.